This conference will now be recorded.
It's supposedly out there somewhere. I got an email that said,
Oh,
it's coming.
good, I hope so, because
And to be sure.
actually, you can just use it.
Oh, well, I've got my board stuff on.
Right, okay.
But thank
So
you very
everything
much.
looks
Yeah,
like-
that's great.
Good morning. Is Marilyn going to be joining us in the ballroom? Okay.
No,
Haven't heard.
all the mics are live. Didn't have,
I thought she was.
And
Jill, do you want to call her? Marilyn? Thought she was coming today.
yeah, it's always possible, she'll show up at 1 o'clock.
Roberta might be a few minutes late logging in because she's driving at the moment.
My pen. She.
I didn't forget.
Oh.
And Steve is probably having his IT person getting him hooked up right now.
Unless there's somebody on, online, there is no one here in the audience but us. No, we have one.
Well, that's not
One
true.
lady is here. Oh, yes, you are.
We got people here. What are these people? Good morning, Lauren.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm good. She's logging in now.
Oh, she's logging in.
not coming.
Okay.
Jill, how long's the town hall going to be?
How long do you want?
How long is the town hall going to be?
How long do you want? 2 minutes? 2 minutes. I think I'm the only one speaking.
Yeah, come on over.
John will stand on the table if you like. No. Come on, I'll give you a few drinks. All right.
One big happy family then.
Yeah. Well, we've got fireworks.
Oh, we'll be done by 9.
Oh, we have to be done by 9. Doesn't Becca have to get on the road?
Yes.
We have the Arizona State Patrol waiting for her to get on the road. Okay. All righty. I have 8:01, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Just prior to the agenda, I just want to let the residents know that the reason for this meeting at such an early hour is, number one, it's not our normally scheduled meeting, but we had a couple of financial things that the board needed to approve so that it would get in quickly to the people so that we can get stuff ordered. And that was time sensitive. And the reason for the early hour is that we have a number of our board members who are traveling today. So this was the best time for all of us. In addition, just as an FYI, what was standard procedures, whenever the board does have an executive session, particularly one that we had yesterday in an emergency, we just need to announce that to the residents. The purpose of the meeting yesterday was for a legal issue potentially affecting personnel. So with that, we'll go ahead and start the meeting. If I could ask everyone to do the Pledge of Allegiance, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Jill to do a roll call and establish a quorum.
Board President Barbara Fugelberg,
Present.
Board Vice President Ron Woodward,
Present.
Board Secretary Marilyn Sorensen. Did she log on yet? I know she's logging on. Marilyn, are you there? Board Treasurer Becca Paulson. Present. Board of Director Marie Besham.
Present.
Board of Director Steve Deal. Board of Director Roberta Ernest.
Okay. Well, we have a quorum.
Do you want me to read homeowner statement period? We have one lady in the ballroom. Oh, and one gentleman.
Yes. Well, and we have a number of people on the line, I see.
Oh, okay. Homeowner statement period. In-person speaker may speak for no more than 2 minutes. If attending virtually, please mute your audio. Please use the chat option for your questions. Comments should be addressed to the concerns of the motion before board takes final action on the item under formal discussion on the table. Negative comments directed at residents, employees of the association, or the board of directors will not be allowed.
Thank you. We'll go on and we'll do the approval of the meeting minutes. I move that we accept the minutes from the May 19th, 2022 special board meeting. Can I have a second?
Second.
So any comments or questions from any members of the board regarding those minutes? Hearing none, are there any questions or comments from any of the residents regarding the minutes from the special board meeting on May 19th? Again, for those of you who are online, if you can put your comments in the chat line and we'll be looking for those. Seeing none, all in favor of board members of approving the minutes from the May 19th, 2022 board meeting, favor say aye. Aye. And I see that was unanimous. Motion passes. The second motion would be regarding the financial reports. Becca, would you make that motion?
I move to accept the April 22 financials.
May I get a second?
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion to accept the April financials. I just point out that the financials that are in our board packet are actually the May financials. But we have received the year-end financials before. Were there any questions from any of the board members regarding the April 2022 financials?
I just want to make a quick comment that this is before audit. So they could change, but this is before our annual audit.
Okay. Thank you for that comment. That's good. Just as an FYI for the residents, we did finish the year with a surplus of a little over $300,000 in operating, and that the budget committee is working on determining how that can be allocated, whether it goes into reserves or stays in operating equity or whatever. So for those residents who are inclined or not inclined to attend budget meetings, I would encourage you to do that. Any other questions or comments from any board member regarding the financials from April? Any questions or comments from any board residents? Let me just look at there are a number of residents online, but I don't see that anybody's actively typing at this time. Seeing none, all of those in favor of approving the financials from April 2022, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. The next thing on the agenda, I'm having to switch between computers here, is just a correction regarding the allocation of funds regarding the Cascades. So I move to approve the request of the budget committee to take the funds for the facelift associated with the Cascades building out of reserves and not out of the operating budget. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So Becca, do you want to give us some background on that?
Don't know, I think it was just an error in the beginning that those funds, because it is a major project, should come out of reserves so that we can track them more appropriately and not out of operating. Operating, we don't track these larger expenditures, and we need to track these items, so we are taking them out of reserve.
Thank you. And I think that the board had approved it coming out of operating, and so this is just a matter of getting it corrected in our minutes. Any other comments from any board member?
Barb, let you know I'm finally on. I'm sorry.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Right now, Roberta, what we're looking at right now is just approving the motion that's on the table right now is the request from the budget committee to take the funds for the facelift of the Cascade building out of reserves and not out of operating, as we previously had, as the board had suggested.
Correct.
So any other questions from any board member about this motion? I'm going to look at the comments from a resident. All I see is an X under a resident's name. I don't see anything else other than that. Okay, so seeing no comments, or is there any comments for anyone in the ballroom? Okay, seeing none, the motion on the table is to approve the request of the budget committee to take the funds for the facelift of the Cascades building out of reserves instead of the operating budget. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. The next thing on the agenda, there's two things regarding pickleball. I'll, as the liaison to the clubs, I'll make the motion. First motion is I move to accept the pickleball club's request that Happy Trails approve the resurfacing of courts 1 through 3 at the expense of the pickleball club. Can I get a second?
Second.
If you recall, at the last board meeting, this request came through and the board had already approved resurfacing courts 4 and 5 as part of the mechanism that we're having people there repairing the fencing and also repairing some surface issues with 4 and 5. That motion failed to add the expense of the 1 through 3. And now we have a request from the pickleball club to go ahead and do courts 1 through 3, and that they would cover the expense for that so that it can be done at the same time as the courts 4 through 5. So are there questions from any of the board regarding this request?
I strongly objected to this when it came up last time and voted against it. And for this very reason, that I thought that the pickleball club should show us that they're willing to contribute in a major way, considering our cost of all of our repairs that we're making this year. And I consider this to be a huge step in the right direction. And I overwhelmingly support their agreement to pay this expense of redoing pickleball courts 1 through 3. And I think they ought to be commended for that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from any other board member?
I hesitated on this just because we've had so many other bills. Talking with the other board members, they feel that this is warranted at this time, especially with the different colors going in and the.
Marie, that's a different motion.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, but speaking to this, where it is, I'd like your comments or questions specifically in them doing the additional courts of 1, 2, and 3, while we're also doing the repairs on 4 and 5. So if the pickleball club is willing to cover the costs of 1, 2, and 3.
So Barb, I want to say that actually that motion was passed last month. It was based on the fact, here's what was passed last month, that the HOA would pay for the resurfacing and repairs of 4 and 5 at a cost of $15,000, and that the pickleball club provided they could get the membership to agree, would pay for the cost of resurfacing courts 1, 2, and 3 for the additional 13,000, 12 to 13,000. And Doug did send that memo out to all of the membership, and the membership passed the authorization for the club to pay the 13,000 for surfacings of 1, 2, and 3. That's why
Right.
I said this whole motion thing is a little goofy. So it's already passed, actually. So I'm not sure
Well-
that we really need to re-vote on it.
Well, according to our minutes, because it was all lumped together, it did not pass, according to our minutes. There was conversation that individual board members had that said they'd be willing to entertain this if the club came up with the money. So the purpose of the motion today is to codify that so that we get it documented, that we get it
Okay.
formally approved in the context of a board meeting and get it approved. So Marilyn, do you have any comments or questions on it? I thought I heard that Marilyn was on the line. If she's not, she's silent. And I'm assuming Steve is still not on the line? Okay. All right. So are there any comments or questions from any member of the audience, whether you're in the ballroom or if you are, oh, that is an empty ballroom. Sad looking, but is there any comments from people that are online? If you can put it in the chat box. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote again. Since it's a financial or a dollar amount, I'd like to do a roll call vote. The motion on the table is to accept the pickleball club's request that Happy Trails approve the resurfacing of courts 1 through 3 at the expense of the pickleball club. So roll call vote, please.
Marie Basham,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Marilyn Sorensen, still not on. Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Steve Deal, he's still not on. Ron Woodward,
Yes.
Barbara Fugelberg.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next motion is now the pickleball club has sent us a letter, and so I'll just read the motion first. The motion to accept the Happy Trails Pickleball Club request that the Happy Trail Board approve the resurfacing of courts 6 through 10 at the time of the repairs that are being completed on courts 4 and 5, and also 1, 2, and 3. And that would be an amount of $16,000, and it would come out of reserve item 1620. Can I get a second to that?
Second.
It's an additional cost of 32,000. It's a split of 16 between HOA and pickleball. I just want to make sure we're clear.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're correct. It would be a total amount of $32,000, of which pickleball would pay 16 and the HOA would be expected to pay the 15,000, correct?
No, they'd have to pay 16. Remember, this is where we talked earlier about this motion is a little jumbled
So
up.
the HOA would be responsible for $16,000 and the pickleball would pay 15. Is that correct?
16 and 16 because it's 32,000.
Okay, 16, 16. Easy math. It's early. Okay.
That's okay.
All right. So any questions or comments for any member of the board on this?
I'll
Becca?
second it just so you can go ahead and
Oh,
talk. Go
okay.
ahead.
Thank you.
Ron already did.
I have a question.
Yes,
If-
Marie.
If the price goes up, right now, the way the motion reads is that the HOA board is responsible for $16,000,
Yes.
not 50/50. So if the price goes up, is the pickleball club going to pay the additional costs?
Okay, so I'm confused on the 50-50 part, Maria. So, because this motion is really messy, tell me where you're coming up with that, just so I can make sure we're both on the same page.
I'll clarify it. It's the total amount. The cost for those additional courts is $32,000. And the pickleball club will pay 16 of that if the Happy Trails board will agree to pay an additional $16,000.
That is correct.
And so Marie, your question is if the price goes up, which we've noticed on other things, is the pickleball club willing to come up with, say, $18,000 instead of the 16? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So my understanding is that this is all based, this pricing of $4,000 for each additional court is all based on the fact that the company is already out there working on courts 4 and 5. And so there's no anticipation that the price would go up because they're starting to work on the courts now, from my understanding, of 4 and 5. But I do want to make clear, Barb, that this motion talks about covering courts 1 through 3 and 6 through 10, which would be the cost of $32,000.
Excuse me, the motion does not. The first motion was for courts 1 through 3 for the pickleball club to pay for. This motion is for Happy Trails to pay for courts 6 through 10 for the
Okay, so
additional 16,000. They're two separate motions because it's two different entities paying for it.
Okay, so Jill, I just want to make sure because I'm looking at the packet you sent out. Did you send out an updated packet?
No, I did not. The motion that
Okay.
was just passed was for the pickleball club to pay for the resurfacing of courts 1 through 3. Now
Okay,
the
I
motion
got that.
here on states that Cascades courts 6 through 10 for $16,000 would be paid for out of reserve. There's two motions there.
I got it. I got it. I know I was looking at the letter and I've been talking with Doug extensively, so it's okay. So you're looking at court 6 through 10 at $4,000 each for a cost of $16,000 from the HOA.
Right, it'll be reserve item 1620, Roberta.
Right.
Okay. So Becca,
Did I lose you guys?
no, I just noticed that there was conversation going on among the board members. So I was
Okay.
waiting here. So, so Ron, what are your comments about this?
Do you have any?
Oh.
Well, we're waiting on,
Yeah, I was by there last night and looked at the pickleball courts at Cascades. On? No, you can.
I can't
we're okay.
hear.
I was by there last night and looked at the pickleball courts at Cascades, and they're doing the painting on the courts that are up front. And there's such a distinct difference between the new paint colors and the old paint colors that it would be like painting half of the barn. And everybody that drove by would wonder why you only painted half of the barn. If we left the 6 through 10 unpainted, and considering that we're coming into our season, although it seems like it's still hot outside, we're approaching the season where people will be coming back and playing, and the tournament will be coming up in January. I really believe that with what the pickleball club has offered to pay here, and the fact that this is tied to reserve item 1620, that this is necessary to go ahead and do this job, especially in light of the uplifting of Cascades that we're doing to try to freshen that up. If we're really trying to attract younger people into the resort, then I think that we want to put on our best face every time we have an opportunity. And when people come in and see the new colors of the courts, and there is just such a stark contrast between the old colors and the new colors, that I think that once you see those courts repainted, you'll say, wow, it's a first-class facility. And the fencing and everything is going to make it look like it's a first-class place where people want to come.
Okay, thank you.
Pub is doing their fair share, and I know we have a lot of expenses, and the next item coming up is another one of them. but I really believe this is something that I can support now.
Thank you. Becca?
I just wanted to clarify, I'm reading the memo from the pickleball club. And I think there's some confusion. Pickleball paying half for 8 of the courts, not the ones that are getting the repair, the 4 and 5, but they are paying half of the resurfacing for the other 8 courts. That's exactly what it says in their memo. So it's $16,000, it's $4,000 a court, and they are paying $2,000 per court. So I want to make sure we all understand they're not paying 1 through 3. They're just paying half of the 8 that are included in this proposal.
That's what I was trying to, Becca, that is exactly what I was trying to point out and asking everybody to read that letter. There has been confusions on this motion. So we codified the motion from last month. I thought that had already been approved. The new motion on the table was to include all courts, 1 through 3 and 6 through 10. Now, I agree with Ron that it definitely makes a difference in the look of things, but it's about the structure. I mean, the courts should be done every 4 or 5 years, and they are currently have not been. They're very behind schedule on resurfacing. So this is a major task, but it's also to get everything up to speed so that we can start on a regimen 4 to 5 years resurfacing.
So what is the bottom line for how much the HOA would be expected to pay? That's the question here.
The bottom
So
line,
if you, yeah, go ahead.
the HOA is paying $15,000 for the repairs to 4 and 5 and the fence. And then they're paying half the costs of the other 32, so 16, so it would be 31,000 total.
And this is Steve. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Thank you.
So Steve, how long have you been on the line?
I've been on the line the whole meeting, but I could not talk.
Okay, well,
Started over.
okay. So, start over. Can you do the Pledge of Allegiance? No.
I could. Want me to stand too?
Yeah, you could, and sing, if you could sing it. So Steve, what are your comments about this total of $15,000?
Well, again, it has nothing to do with pickleball, but we've turned everybody in the world down. We have authorized additional expenditures for asphalt. The next item on the agenda is more expensive than the asphalt additions, and I'm concerned that we have a fiduciary responsibility to the members of this resort, and we're going through money like a drunken sailor. I'm concerned.
Okay, all right. Marie?
That was my concern as well. We've got the next item on the agenda is more money. The asphalt was more money. And I'm with Steve in that I felt like a parent who is looking at a whole bunch of bills and so much in my bank account. And at the end of the day, you start looking at your bank account going, okay, I've got to pay food and I've got to pay heating. And then comes the movies. And so which bill do I pay? And as much as I want to take my kids to the movies, I have to feed them and I have to pay the heating bill. And again, this has nothing to do with whether I like pickleball or I participate in pickleball. It's a matter of my bank account. And I want to be, I want to pay it all. I really do. I want to pay it all. But I also want to look at what's the next bill coming.
Yeah.
Resort is, as we know, older and the bills keep coming in. And the next time we turn around, what else is going out? What other equipment is failing on us? And are we going to have any money in the bank account? And that's my personal fear.
Yeah, and that's where I'm coming from too. I think I agree that the pickleball club, pickleball courts, pickleball club is a major draw. for residents coming into our community, and that the pickleball club has been extremely generous for years in the development of that and making it such a special place. But my concern is about a couple of things. Number one is process, in that we submitted the budget, BG&M committee and budget committee worked on how to spend out of the reserve items for this fiscal year. And those dollars were already allocated on how they would be spent. And so I'm concerned about all of these requests that are coming in after the budget has already been approved. And that is something that we as a board and as a budget committee need to work on. From a priority perspective, I agree that aesthetically it would make sense for the colors to match. But from a priority perspective, I don't see the safety need. And I agree that maybe they haven't been resurfaced as they should, but there is also the issues, just like within our asphalt projects, we don't do all the asphalt in 1 year because it'd be cost prohibitive. We stagger those and have them in sequence. The same thing with the resurfacing. If we get all of the courts resurfaced at one time, the resurfacing process is going to take place in a big chunk of money in another year when we may need those dollars for other things. So for me, it's a timing issue. Number one, in my opinion, it should have been asked at the time the budget was prepared, and I don't see it as critical.
Barbara,
Yes,
can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, I have to agree with you. That's one of the things that concerns me is the timing. We have a budget, and I think that we have to really think about it before we extend that budget for aesthetics. I mean, it says it needs resurfacing, but has there been any indication that the surface is doing poorly or not working or, you know, whatever it is? And so I see some reservation there on just extending this cost into this year's budget.
Any other comments from any board members before I open it up to the community?
One other.
While I'm concerned about, as Steve is about, while I'm as concerned as Steve is about our fiduciary responsibility to our owners, and while I'm as concerned as Barbara is about our sticking to process, I also subscribe to the philosophy of stand firm and remain flexible. And this is a case where I'm going to be flexible because I believe that if you don't understand the times in which we live right now, things are crunching on everyone. But I don't believe that with the reserves that we have to show how much it's affecting us by doing our projects halfway. And I think that if we show that we're a resort that wants to go forward, I think it behooves us to complete the jobs that we need to do. I think we can look around and find streets that we can put off for a year or two or three and not do the paving. I think we can find roofs that we could wait for another year or two to get done. And I know the next item is going to say, well, if you don't do this now, it's going to cost $12,000 to come out and complete it later. But I really believe in this case, your nose is out there in front of you, and everyone is looking at that as a first sign of the health of the resort. And that's simply why I'm supporting it, because I really believe that we have to show that we are trying to go forward. And I believe that if we want to attract people who have the ability to support a first-class resort, then we have to look like a first-class resort from the bottom up, especially the things that stand out to the people that come through here.
Thank you. Any other
Yeah,
questions?
Barb.
Yes.
No, Barb, I was just going to say, and I'm sorry, I'm not face to face for him to see me, but I agree wholeheartedly with what Steve says. We have to be very very responsible to our membership about our money and how we're spending it. And I agree with you too, Barb, on process. You know, I'm a process person, and I think this board is in that stage of trying to get some processes going and get it revolving. But I have to agree with Ron too. I mean, we have a system here, but we have to update, and we may have to push some other things off. And I agree, there are some streets around there I don't think really need to be paved right away, but I've been kind of following suit because I know that's what we budgeted for and kept going with. So at this point, I have to say I agree with all three of you, and we'll listen to the comments of everyone else and then make a decision.
Okay. Becca, were you wanting to make another comment?
I just wanted to say that I agree with Ron and Roberta. I speak to a lot of younger people on this resort, and they are really, really pushing for not necessarily, I mean, roads and roofs and all that are important, but not more amenities, but nicer things. Make it more of a resort feel. Don't do a project halfway, i.e. the pickleball courts. Make them look the way they should look now. They've changed the color scheme and so on. Don't do half of them and put half of them off. It hurts our image. And if we're going to be a viable institution, we have to be very aware of that image. Regardless of infrastructure, I mean, infrastructure is important, but image is right up there at the top, as far as I'm concerned.
All righty. It's a call for the, I look to see if there's any questions, comments from any residents.
Barb, this is Mike Nice. We do have a comment that came directly to the resort on accident. It's from Mike Rugland. Says past review of the reserves showed a fairly deep drop in reserves expenses with an uptick after a couple of years of major expenses. What is the overage of projected expenses? He also said we can also beef up reserves with a portion of the excess on expenses.
Yes. Well, yeah, and that, thank you for that, Mike, and Mike. As we know, as we entered in this budget process, we actually entered the budget that was accepted really was a deficit budget, meaning that we did not anticipate there'd be as much revenue coming in as we were having expenses for this upcoming budget year. So we knew that just from an operating perspective, we were expected to figure out how we could make some cuts, and that is separate from the reserve issue. So, okay. Any other questions or comments in the chat?
Well,
I see that Doug, go ahead, Steve, and then we'll open it up to the public.
my second question is more of a statement. If we're going to spend this money and then spend it on the next item, then somebody has to grow a backbone the rest of the year. We're only a month and a half into the budget, and we spent half of what was transferred from excess operating a year ago. We only got 100. So I want everybody to remember that as we go through the year.
Okay. I do see that Doug is on the line and that he'd like to address the board if possible. So Doug, if you could take yourself off mute, and for the rest of the community, just as an FYI, Doug is the board president of the Pickleball Club. Doug, you can go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking time to review this. I just got on, so I just caught a couple of the comments there. I know Barb acknowledged what the club has done in the past as far as providing assistance to keeping up the infrastructure of pickleball courts, both Cascade and Town Center, and I appreciate that. This again is the club stepping up to pay half for taking care of the courts. I know that there was a question about the safety. The courts 4 and 5 are being repaired, and that's because there were issues developing. And I think what I would say is that we got to be careful about waiting for something to happen, and we get stuck mid-season, or it's some of their time when we have been able to do it while the individuals are not there. So, you know, the chipping and the cracking that was occurring in number 4 and 5, that could also happen. It is not happening yet. but if it does, because of the age of these, and that's why I believe that the industry recommends that 4 to 6 years just to keep on top of that, so you're not playing on a game in the middle of the game and things start to crack. So those are the comments that I had based on what I've seen here. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything that you've got.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doug. Mike Nice, this is Barb. I don't see any chat that's coming through on my side. Are you seeing anything on yours?
No, no chats. That was the only one.
Okay. Are there any other comments for any of the residents and or members in the ballroom?
Yes.
Yes, we have one.
Okay. If you come forward, name, height, weight, natural hair color.
I don't know if is this on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Lauren Hanson, lot 556. I'm a member of the pickleball club. And one of the things that needs to be aware of too is the aesthetics of our resort is what sells new properties, different properties in here. Through the tournament, we get a lot of new people in here, and we have actually had people who have come into tournaments and bought property. Every time they buy property in here, you're getting funds from them that go into the asset improvement fund. So we're talking about an income too, as far as the community is concerned. Aesthetics sell properties. They don't necessarily look at roofs. They don't necessarily look at the roads. They look at what stands out. And the pickleball courts, when they are completed on this, will be a very outstanding asset to this community.
Thank you, Lauren. If there are no other comments, I'd like to call for the vote. In that I know that a board member has needs to leave relatively soon. So I'd like to call for the motion, and that given that it's a financial or a dollar amount, I'd like to do a roll call vote, please. Jill?
Ron Woodward,
Yes.
Steve Deal,
No.
Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Marilyn Sorensen,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Marie Basham,
Yes.
Barbara Fugelberg.
Given the comments from the pickleball members, I will vote yes.
Passes.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, remember I love process, and we do have to really work this year on making sure that we have a process in place so that all these requests for capital improvements are made during the budget process. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda has to do with a issue that's come up from the roofing project. So I'll make the motion. I move to approve the replacement of the 20-ton heat pump and the 2 low temperature condensing units and the 1 freezer low temperature condensing unit during the roof replacement project on the chuck wagon, not to exceed $80,000. And this will come from reserve item 305 and 834. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. So what we've learned about this from Pioneer Roofing, and Pioneer Roofing is the group that's going to be doing the flat roofs. And as they were looking at it, their mechanical contractor stated that there are 4 pieces of equipment on those roofs that really need a review and repair, and 2 of it has to do on building L, which is replacing some condensing units and a freezer unit. And that would be around $24,000. And then on building S, which is directly over the chuck wagon, would be a 20-ton heat pump, not to exceed $54,000. So as an FYI, the budget committee and the BG&M committee, when they look at reserve items, particularly big like air conditioning units, even though it may have 0 life left, meaning that it's due for repair or replacement, they really go at they run to fail. So we only replace these items if actually it's broken and needs to be replaced. But with the roofing project, the concern is that particularly that heat pump does have 0 life. So at some point in the near future, we'll have to replace it. And there's only in the reserves $24,000 allocated for that. But as we know, costs are going up. Well, people are charging more, let's put it that way. And the cost of that unit is estimated to be $54,000 for replacement. And also that it has a 22-week lead time. So that's really the purpose of today's meeting, to get this approved so we can get it ordered so that it can be installed in December when the chuck wagon is typically closed for the holidays. So that the belief is from both Pioneer, and we also asked Kinko's. It's not in your board packet, but the board did receive that letter before, to weigh in on it. Kinko is the company that we typically use for our HVAC repair, and they concurred with the recommendation in that they felt that it was appropriate for us to pay this expense now. Even though it is expensive, it's only going to get more expensive as some of the federal regulations are changing in 2023 and costs going up. So are there any questions or comments from the board?
You know, I really believe this would be a great
Let's go ahead
deal
and let's
easier.
Ron, Steve has a comment. He's going to need to be leaving soon. Go ahead, Steve.
I mean, if we approve this, I would like to add a clause that the contractor recognize that in fact price may go down. And the example I'm going to use is they charge us $80 for tongue and groove to put under some of the roofing over the ballroom. And by the time they got it done, I could buy it at Home Depot for $23. I want a clause in that agreement with them that should the price go down, receipt required, that we share in the benefit of the reduction in cost.
Okay.
I agree with Steve.
Okay. All right. Any other, Ron, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Ron, what are your comments or questions?
It would have been a great deal easier to understand if these, I know that maybe Jill understands and maybe Steve understands these building L, building Q, building S. It appears to me that we probably started this roofing project backwards and should have gone to ones that didn't have the compressors. I don't know. I don't want to speak for BGM and the process that was used to determine where we started. But I know that all of them were in need of repair, but I know these condenser units need to be done at the time that the roof is done. And I support getting this done at the cheapest possible cost. And the overrun has already been over $200,000. And now we have an additional $80,000 or so here. But I would appreciate when projects like this come in, that they identify what building L and building Q and building S are, so that we can visually picture what they're talking about.
I think that after the meeting, you can, Jill actually has the roofing project binder, if you will, the original roofing study that was done, and the schematics, I'm sorry, the map of where those buildings are is present. I noticed it when I was down there briefly.
Barbara?
Yes.
I'm just asking.
I have to leave, but I would vote in the affirmative to get this done.
Okay.
I have to go now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Steve. So Jill does have that information available for you, Ron, and I agree, it would be nice if we knew exactly where it was. The building S, I noticed when I was down there, it was really a tiny little roofing related to it.
Well, it's like when we send out the notes about the closures of streets for repaving to tell patients.
Hey, you're talking like me now.
Owners how to get in and out. We use street names rather than project numbers to tell them how to get around. I just asked maybe Jill add that to it next time to tell us which roof we're talking about.
I will point out that we had last year that the identical issue came up in that for the roofs that were done this last year by the other company, that we did have to actually replace another air conditioning unit at that time. And when we talked to the budget committee last week about this to get for them to weigh in on this proposal, we did say that this was all learnings for us, that the next time we look at a roofing project, we do have to take into account all the air conditioning units, because it does seem as if every vendor is making the same request of us. And so we have to tie that into the project in the future. So Becca, do you have any comments or questions? Marilyn, Marie?
No.
Any comments or questions from the residents? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Again, it's a dollar amount, so we'll do a roll call vote. We already have Steve's. Oh, and let me just reiterate the motion. So the motion is to approve the replacement of the 20-ton heat pump and the 2 low temp condensing units and 1 freezer low temp condensing unit during the roof replacement project, not to exceed $80,000, coming out of reserve items 305 and 834. Robert's rules, I should have added there Steve's request to, if the price goes down, that the company will share with us any of the cost savings. So all in favor of that motion, Jill, would you do a roll call, please?
Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Marilyn Sorensen,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Marie Basham,
Yes.
Ron Woodward,
Yes.
Barbara Fugelberg.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the residents for all this. With that, the meeting technically will close. I just want to reiterate that we are very close to be sending out the survey for the long range planning process that we had hoped to start a couple years ago before COVID got in the way. But the blast that went out is a reminder to everybody that we do need people's email addresses correct in order for those to go out. I do see a chat on here. Looks like Pat McCormick made a comment. It looks like 100,000 of the 300,000 from last year has been spent between pickleball and the cooling units. Yes, she's correct in that. Your math is pretty good, Pat. Okay. With that, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
A second? All right, all in favor? Thank you very much.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you all.
Jill, we have more than a 1 minute town hall. The choir's gonna leave.
We're not gonna, I mean,
All right, no town hall.
we're 8 people. I was gonna have a town hall meeting for 8 people.